Leah is is it co-founder or founder?
Co-founder.
Co-founder of Sublime, but she also didn't bike across the United States. She biked across the continent of Africa. And she has built a company that is the model, that is the gold standard. Leah, can you tell us a little bit about what Sublime does? And then I want to go back to your life and how you came to start it and how you got it from where it was at the genesis to where it is now. And then I want to talk a little bit about what's next. But maybe talk about why Sublime is important right now, what it is, what decarbonization is. So yeah, thank you for joining me up here.
Thanks so much for having me. So Sublime Systems is an MIT spinout that is developing technology to decarbonize and reinvent cement making. So cement, we know, is one of the most important building materials. It's been around for thousands of years, but it has a problem, which is it's one of the largest contributors to global CO2 emissions. So it's 8% of global CO2 emissions, which surprises most people. But that's because it's one of the most massively produced man-made materials. So we use 4 billion tons of cement. Each ton of cement results in 1 ton of CO2 emissions, and that adds up to a tremendous amount. And that's a problem because we need cement. Like, we can't do without it. And so Sublime started by working backwards from that problem. How can we make cement that is just as performant and as cheap as we need it to be in our modern world, but while avoiding these CO2 emissions? So my co-founder and I started working backwards from this problem, and what we developed was a way of making cement that is not just avoiding CO2 emissions, but is also better in so many ways, with superior durability and all these other properties that make it better, faster, cheaper on the job site. So I couldn't be more proud of that. I started it 7 years ago, 2 years at MIT, 5 years at Sublime, and we were very quiet as we took it through the pilot stage. But now we've deployed it in half a dozen places, starting in Boston Seaport, most recently in data centers, and have collected hundreds of thousands of tons of offtake from some of the world's biggest data center producers, and have partnered with 3 of the largest cement producers in the Western world who are looking to adopt and deploy this technology all over the world. So
so you negotiated with Microsoft. What was that like? Were you surprised? Did you say, will you build one equivalent Gillette Stadium? When they said we'll do 35, was that a surprise, or did you want them to buy more? Like walk us through that deal a little bit.
Well, Microsoft is a great customer, and I think they're looking not just near term about how they're going to build today's data centers, but they really want to look at how they can use their purchasing power to invest in their future supply chain, and how do you bring these new technologies to market. And so cement is very complicated because Microsoft has never bought cement before. Like, they buy buildings, but they know that since they are the biggest builder of buildings at this moment, they have to go way back in their supply chain and start investing further down if they want to see products like this in the future. So nobody else can do it except for these big data center builders like Microsoft, and many of the other hyperscalers have very aggressive commitments to low carbon solutions that will advance society.
And did you negotiate an exclusive with Microsoft, or is the company available to work with some of the others that might need the equivalent?
Definitely not exclusive. So the Microsoft deal kickstarted several others that are being negotiated with big hyperscalers building data centers.
So your PhD had to do with making batteries. Like, how did that technology get applied to cement?
Yeah, my PhD is in chemistry, which is the central science, and it focused on batteries. So my PhD was working closely with Tesla, and when they started getting into their gigafactory, they started to get into IP of batteries. And so we were contracted with Tesla to do some of their build their IP portfolio when they were getting into batteries for the first time. So I, sat at the intersection of chemistry, physics, material science, and electrochemistry, and all of that was translated to cement making when I started working at MIT, and took all of that knowledge to a totally different system, which was really, really fun to start as a total novice and learn about this very old very sophisticated industry. And I think that naivety is really a secret weapon, and being a total novice in something, you get to ask really stupid, dumb and honest questions. And these are questions that experts would never even think to ask. So being a dyed-in-the-wool battery scientist, I am the biggest skeptic of any new battery technology. I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but I think these things go through an S-curve of innovation. And, once that flattens out, I think it's, everything's been done, everything's been tried. And so you have this no because attitude to something that you know very well. But if you come as a total newcomer, you can start asking these wild questions. And it's very important to talk to the experts. And, they might, you might be surprised that your questions aren't that crazy. And you can actually open up a whole new S-curve by coming in as an outsider. And so that's something I've really, really enjoyed, and it's been really rewarding.
Great. So as one of the top leaders in transforming a very traditional industry, talk about how you got to where you are. And I mentioned you biked across Africa, but just early days, what was Leah Ellis like?
Early days. Well, I was always fascinated by chemistry. To me, it's just absolute magic to just play with matter and energy and to turn it into different forms. And so that always attracted me. But I never really got academic traction mentally. I never became fully mentally engaged in my studies until I started doing grad school and started working with inventors. And there's nothing cooler in my mind than being on the cutting edge of science and technology and pushing the frontier of what humans know and creating things that have impact and measuring that impact in dollars and value. And that was the coolest thing to me. And I've always had the privilege of working with really prolific and creative inventors. And that's certainly what drew me to Boston. I think we have a lot of folks like that here. And another thing that I think I've brought to my career is a sense of adventure. And you mentioned between my master's and PhD, a PhD to someone in their early 20s, 4 years just feels like an eternity. And so I wanted to do something, totally different in that very, rare and precious time between two big efforts. And so I joined the Tour d'Afrique, which is a annual trip, which I don't think really happens anymore because of how unstable North Africa is, but it typically goes from Cairo to Cape Town, so 12,000 kilometers.
And no e-bikes.
No e-bikes. I don't know if e-bikes were a thing at that time. So 2014, it was all pedal power and Mars bars that took us from Cairo to Cape Town. So
your dad's a rabbi.
That's right. My dad is an Orthodox Jewish rabbi,
And how does that play out with your pushing the envelope of what is?
Having a dad that is an Orthodox Jewish rabbi, especially in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is, literally a very provincial place, it does make you stand out. And when you're young and you want to fit in, that's really embarrassing to have a family that's so different. But now that I'm older, I feel really, really privileged to have such an intellectual and scholarly, spiritual leader so close to me. And I think that his academic nature, how deep he goes into things, how honest and he is in his pursuit of truth and goodness is really inspiring. So I go back to my dad a lot, and really, really privileged to have that.
All right, last question. Prediction for the next 50 to 250 years, whatever you want. Or share a vision.
My prediction and my hope is that we continue to push the envelope and continue to push the limits of human knowledge. And something that inspires me a lot, and I think about this all the time in different ways, but one example is that, electricity was documented thousands of years ago by the Greeks, and it's a very common experience
Ben Franklin, right?
Yeah, it's a very common experience to
He wasn't Greek. Okay.
No, he came from right here. So very common experience to walk on a carpet and touch a doorknob and get zapped by static electricity. Everybody knows this. Every child experiences this, but we never understood or harnessed that very common, phenomenon of electricity until 200 years ago. And so I think a lot about what else is just so common that we don't even think about it or explore it, and it's just right in the periphery. And maybe AI, frees up all these smart people from whatever they're doing now, and they can start to find other things that are just hidden in plain sight. And so I'm just so excited to be alive and to see that happen.
I forgot to ask, do you want to weigh in on your, leadership opportunity switch right now?
Yeah, so I am no longer the CEO of Sublime. Whoops.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes sounds.
Yeah.
So recently passed the reins to the new CEO, Rob Davis, who comes to Sublime with 40 years of experience running cement plants and running portfolios of cement plants and building new types of chemical plants. And so I could not be more proud and happy to turn it over to someone who's just going to take the ball and run it through the next set of obstacles as we go from taking this from pilot scale to full scale.
Great. Well, good luck, and we're glad you're on the case.
Thank you.